Report. These are the actual audio reports of Special Agent Jake Taylor of the U.S. Unexplained Phenomena Administration. Covertly obtained recordings the government has kept secret of the strange things that happen where you live.
Everyone would like some art hanging in their home, and here's your chance to have originals of prints by Wheeze. Wheeze is a phenomenal artist known all over for her great work, including the Love Me Dog Art series. Check out artbywheeze.com today and get one of her amazing paintings or prints for your home. This is Jake Taylor with the U.S. Unexplained Phenomena Administration. The date is June 27th, 4 p.m., 2036. This is my report. Location of interest, latitude 40 degrees, 45 minutes, 6.3288 seconds north. Longitude, 73 degrees, 58 minutes, 31.8684 seconds west. The Chrysler Building, New York City. I arrived at Bellevue Hospital at 9 a.m. June 26, 2036. The person of interest was arrested at the coordinates I just recorded and taken to the Bellevue Hospital Psychiatric Ward. I wanted to speak to him before going to the Chrysler Building. After showing the nurse on duty the court order supplied by the administration giving me access to the patient, she led me to a locked room he was being kept in. According to the report, he attacked a security guard in the Chrysler Building who used a taser to subdue him. The police were called and he was taken to the Psychiatric Ward of Bellevue Hospital. The guard was lucky and walked away with only a few bruises. There was a small window on the door to his room, and he was sitting on the bed, still dressed in traditional Indian clothes, staring straight ahead and looking very confused. There were no windows in the room. I tapped on the glass in the door and he looked at me without rising. I pressed the speaker button so he could talk and asked him if he could hear me. His response was in a language I thought I recognized, but couldn't speak or understand. I just nodded and left. My next stop was an address I had looked up before leaving Washington. Knowing what was in a secure area in the sub-basement of the Chrysler Building, it looked like my hunch was right. Her apartment was on the Upper West Side, and she answered the door after the second ring. She was a lot younger than I thought she'd be, and very pretty. Cynthia Miller? She said she was and asked what I wanted. I showed her my credentials. My name is Jake Taylor. I'm with the U.S. government, and I would like to talk to you about something I need your help with. She opened the door wider. Come in. We went to the living room, and she pointed to the couch. Have a seat. Would you like something to drink? No, thanks. She sat in the chair opposite the couch and raised her eyebrows. What do you need my help with? You're an archaeologist who specializes in the study of the old Native American tribes who were in Manhattan? Yes. Do you also speak their language? Yes. What is this about? Before explaining, I need to make sure you understand that everything I say, and if you choose to help me, everything you see and hear will be top secret, and you may not speak about it with anyone or share it in any way. Do you understand that? Yes. Do you agree to it? I'm not sure what to say. This has to do with my field of study? Yes, ma'am. Can you tell me anything at all before I commit to something I may not want to do? All I can say is that this is an opportunity for you that you wouldn't want to miss. Even if you can't share what you've learned, it will help you in your work and you will be doing a great service to your country. She sat quiet for a moment, looking at me, thinking it over. Okay, you have my word. I will not share what I see or hear. But if it helps somehow in my work, may I use it in my personal studies? Is that good enough? Yes. There is a man in Bellevue who I believe might be an original member of the Manhattan Indian tribe. There aren't many members of that tribe around, and I do know most of them. Why is he at Bellevue? What I am about to tell you has no direct bearing on your field of study, but it's important for you to understand. Are you familiar with the grid created at CERN? Yes. There is a place here in the city that is connected to the grid, and I think it pushed past the safety limits set out for its users. We have instruments that record certain events around the world. I can't go into detail on that, but We detected a spike in the grid's use at this location. We detected an abnormality in the fabric of time. It was right after that the Indian showed up in the building where the grid connection is. I saw him. He doesn't speak English. It is possible that this Indian came through a wormhole in time. I need someone to translate for me, someone who knows the customs and the people who were here long ago. Will you help me?" She looked at me speechless for a minute and then said, "Are you insane? Are you willing to let an opportunity like this go by without finding out if it's real?" She thought about that a moment, studying my face for signs of insanity. "No, I'll translate for you if I can. There was more than one language spoken by the Native Americans: Manhattan, Minqua, Savanos, and Wapanus. If this man speaks any of them, I should be able to translate." The same nurse was on duty when we got back to the hospital, and she let us speak to the man in the room alone. Miss Miller watched him through the glass panel in the door, studying him closely. He is dressed and has the appearance of a Manhattan Indian from around the 1600s. The clothing looks well worn, not like a newly made costume. How do I speak to him? I pointed to the speaker on the wall beside the door. "Press that button and you can hear each other. I need you to tell me everything you're going to say before you say it, and his replies as he says them. We need to be careful with what we say. I'm going to try to send him back, but we have to limit what he learns, or it may have a disastrous effect on history." "I understand." "Try a general greeting first." After turning on my recorder and nodding to her, she spoke to the man still sitting on the bed and ignoring us. When he heard her words, he looked up surprised and excited. "I tried to speak in Manhattan, but I don't think that is his language. I'll try Wapanus next." This time he jumped up from the bed and came to the window, staring out at us, and started jabbering something. When he finished, Miss Miller translated. "He asked who we are and if he was in the land of his ancestors. He thinks he died and crossed over. Tell him he is still alive and has found a way to travel to a land beyond the ocean, and we will help him return to his own land." She looked at me like I might have really been insane, then shrugged and translated. When he responded, she translated again to me. "His name is Awanahe. He said he wants to go back to his people. Can I ask him some questions about his life? It will be of a tremendous help in my studies, and if I use what I learn, I will not share where I got the information from." The question didn't come as a surprise, and it seemed only fair to agree to it. Besides, if she started telling people about what actually happened, chances are she'd end up in that room. I mentioned that to her and left her to speak to the Indian while I went in search of a doctor to get his release. She took my recorder and agreed to record the entire conversation. Bureaucracy is bad enough in most government institutions, but a New York institution is the worst. It took me over half an hour to get the Indian released to my custody. When I got back, Miss Miller and Awanahe were talking back and forth a mile a minute. Has he said anything that I need to know? We were just talking about his life and experiences. Some of the things he told me showed a lot of assumptions we had made about the Native American Indians in this area were completely wrong. What I've learned is invaluable. It will be a tremendous help in my studies. Explain to him we will be making the trip back to his land now, and he must behave. If he causes any trouble, he will not be allowed to return home." Thankfully, she understood and didn't question it, then relayed that to him. He jabbered on a bit, agreeing to go with us without trouble. When they brought him to the hospital, he was unconscious and did not see the great sights of New York City. She explained to him at my suggestion that he will see many things that will be strange to him, but we are friends and will not hurt him. He looked skeptical, but said he would come with us without trouble. Saying it in the room and then being confronted with New York City in all its hectic grandeur are two different things. He stared in wonder at everything as we made our way out of the hospital, totally disoriented after the elevator ride, which must have seemed like nothing short of magic to him. Step in a room, the door closes on its own. A minute later, the door opens on its own, and the room on the other side is gone, and there's a new one in its place. As we stepped out onto the street, he froze. His eyes opened wide and looked around in every direction. A car driving by beeped its horn and he jumped. Miss Miller had kept up a steady dialogue trying to keep him calm. It wasn't working too well, but when he looked at me confidently standing there, his own pride kicked in and he slid into the seat through the door I held open for him. Awanahe actually yelped when I started to drive off, and he stared in wide-eyed wonderment as I threaded my way through traffic to the Chrysler Building. When I parked and we got out, he touched the fender of the car, giving it a little shove, then backed away from it. Apparently, Awanahe was under the impression it was some sort of living animal. That was the first real laugh of the day. Still talking steadily, Miss Miller and Awanahe followed me into the Chrysler Building. Apparently, it was a different security guard on duty, and my ID badge got us through with no problem. Awanahe cautiously stepped into the elevator, and we rode it down as far as it went. At the far end of the basement was a steel door with a peephole. I knocked and held my ID up to it, and the guard on the other side opened the door. It took some explaining for him to let us continue, and we used the elevator there to go down to the fourth and lowest level, the grid facility. From here on, Miss Miller stared and wondered at everything as much as Awanahe did. As this administration knows, a while back a U.S. government-funded operation set up this facility in the secret sub-basement deep underground beneath the Chrysler Building and connected to the grid created by CERN using their Large Hadron Collider. It's been kept top secret all these years. Scientists at CERN were worried the grid could cause an alternate dimension to appear, and they've been monitoring it closely. It would appear the scientists in New York City have used it to create another problem. There were half a dozen men and women around the room sitting at their computers, and an elderly man behind a desk just inside the door stood up and came over to us. "I've been told to expect you and give you full cooperation," he said. "Good. Want to tell me what happened here?" "Well, we were testing a theory, and it got a little out of hand." I just looked at him like that wasn't enough. "We opened a wormhole in the fabric of time. We were actually trying to prove the fears of creating an alternate dimension was unrealistic." He pointed to a very large machine of some kind I've never seen before. "There was distortion in the air around it, and while we were studying it," he pointed to Awanahe, "this gentleman stepped out. Of course, we were unequipped to handle such a situation, and after attacking some of our staff, a member of our security detachment tasered him, and he was brought to Bellevue for safekeeping while we decided what to do next. Then your agency contacted us, having been alerted somehow to what had happened, and we were told we may need to duplicate the experiment so this gentleman," he pointed at Awanahe again, "can get back home. Will you be able to duplicate things so he can?" "We think so. We're ready to try." He glanced around the room at the others, and a couple of them nodded, but none of them seemed very confident. "How long will the connection between his time and ours be open?" "Not very long. A minute or two at most." "All right, get things started." I turned away from him and went over to where Miss Miller was still talking to Awanahe. "Explain to him that we are preparing for his trip home. When we're ready, we'll show him where to go." She translated, and Awanahe said he was ready. Miss Miller also said she told him he must be silent about coming here and all the things he saw. If he tells anyone about it, he'll be brought back here and will never return home again. She translated, and Awanahe said he was ready. Miss Miller also said she told him he must be silent about coming here and all the things he saw. If he tells anyone about it, he will be brought back here and will never return home. He believed me, so hopefully this will not create a time paradox. That's when something he does after he goes back changes history in some way. Good. I was going to tell you to say something like that. Miss Miller, I really appreciate all your help. Without you, this would have been an even bigger mess than it is. We are aware of time paradoxes, and that's why we knew we had to return him to his time so nothing would change. Let's just hope there won't be any repercussions from any of this. It took a while for the scientists to get everything ready. I was expecting some sort of loud noise or a lightning bolt to flash out of the machine, but other than a humming sound, it was quiet. Slowly and growing steadily larger, the air in front of the machine became distorted, and the scientists who were monitoring their computers all turned to look at us. The one I had been speaking with nodded. "It's ready. We aren't sure it will return him to the same place he left, but all the settings are exactly the same, and, in theory, it should work." That sounded less than reassuring, but there was no choice but to go through with it. Miss Miller and Awanahe said their goodbyes, and I led the Indian to the place where the air was now completely distorted and pointed. I could see him gathering his courage, then he just walked into the distorted air and disappeared. One of the scientists at a computer yelled out, "It worked!" There's no way to know for certain if it did. Awanahe may have come out in a different time than the one he left, or he may not even have survived it. Miss Miller and I went to her home, where she searched every place she knew of about the history of the Manhattan Indians, and couldn't find anything that looked like a problem. Apparently, there is very little real information available about them. There were no tales left behind of Awanahe's travels anywhere in the folklore of the tribe either. That's my report, submitted from a secure location in New York City. I'll be back in D.C. on Monday. Miss Miller and I have a lot to talk about this weekend. Everyone would like some art hanging in their home, and here's your chance to have originals of prints by Wheeze. Wheeze is a phenomenal artist known all over for her great work, including the Love Me Dog Art series. Check out artbywheeze.com today and get one of her amazing paintings or prints for your home. This recording and its contents is copyrighted and may not be used in part or in whole by anyone for any reason other than to listen to where authorized.